Do you keep hiring engineers who look great on paper but need their hands held the second they're in the seat? The fix is a job scorecard, and the document you wrote is the reason it keeps happening. I've scaled engineering orgs past 200 people, and I've made every hiring mistake that exists. And the one that cost me the most wasn't a bad hire, it was a bad document. I fixed the document, and the quality of people we attracted completely changed. And there's one specific section inside the scorecard that does something most hiring managers just never expect. It acts as a trapdoor during the interview. It exposes consensus seekers before you ever even make an offer. And I'm going to show you exactly how it works in the ownership boundary section. 3 parts. Why job descriptions are actively filtering out your best candidates. How to build all 4 scorecard sections with real role examples, and the one interview move using a single word that tells you whether you've got an owner or a consensus seeker before you ever make an offer. Most engineering job descriptions are wish lists. Stack requirements, years of experience, a vague paragraph about culture fit, and nothing about what success actually looks like. A players read that and they just move on. They're not looking for a list of tasks. They want a problem with their name on it. A scorecard gives them that. It doesn't describe activity, it defines ownership. That one shift changes who applies, who stays, and who actually moves when they're in the seat. I had a release process where nobody owned the go/no-go decisions. Ask who's responsible, and the answer was always, we'll handle it as a team. Sounds collaborative. What it actually meant, when something broke, there was no decision owner, just a group of people pointing at each other. That's what vague documents produce. A players read through that ambiguity immediately. They self-select out of postings that don't name a real problem. They're not afraid of hard work. They're afraid of unclear ownership. So they skip your posting and go somewhere that tells them exactly what they're walking into. The scorecard addresses this by being built around 4 specific sections: mission, outcomes, competency, and ownership boundaries. Each section does a different job. Strip one out, and the document loses its teeth. A mission explains to the candidate why the role exists. Outcomes define what they must hit. Competencies name the behaviors required to get there. And ownership boundaries make authority visible from day one. That's the problem. Now let's build the fix. You see, every job scorecard, it has 4 sections: missions, outcomes, competencies, and ownership boundaries. Start with mission, 1 to 2 sentences. The job is to define the exact reason this role exists, not what the person will do every day, but what problem they're solving and why it matters to the business. Quote, write backend Python quote, end quote, is not a mission. That's a task. A mission sounds like this: architect and scale our payment infrastructure so we can handle 10x transaction volume without latency degradation. Now the candidate knows why they're there. They know the problem has their name on it. That one sentence gives the role a pulse. It also tells the wrong candidates to keep scrolling, which is exactly what you want. Outcomes. This is where the whole document lives or dies, and it's where 90% of job descriptions completely fall apart. If you can't fill in 3 to 5 measurable outcomes before you post the role, close the rec. Because 12 months from now, you'll be improvising the standard, and your engineer, they're going to feel it. So here's how this looks across 3 roles. For a backend engineer, strong year 1 outcomes include a measurable reduction in escaped defects over 90 to 180 days, a higher percentage of features shipped without senior intervention, improved cycle time from ticket acceptance to production, and clear documented ownership of at least 1 service or feature area. Now the theme here is delivery to independence. You want evidence that they can execute without being managed through every single step. For a platform engineer, the whole question shifts. Did their work make other engineers faster? I mean, you're looking for reduced deployment friction within 90 days, increased adoption of internal tooling across product engineering teams, and a measurable drop in support tickets related to platform bottlenecks. If their work made other engineers faster, the scorecard tells you. And if it didn't, the scorecard tells you that too. For an SRE, here's where most managers measure the wrong thing. They look at incident speed. Fast at firefighting, the scorecard forces a different question. Did the work reduce future operational drag? Fewer repeat incidents, lower mean time to recovery, postmortems that actually close. That's the difference between a strong SRE and someone who just likes putting out fires. Competencies. Tech stack goes here. Python, Kubernetes, Terraform, whatever the role requires. But that's table stakes. The behavioral competencies tied to the outcomes are what this section is actually about, and most scorecards, they skip them entirely. Now, if their outcome requires overhauling legacy code inside an undefined system, a required competency is high resilience to ambiguity. Not comfortable with change, specifically, can this person do rigorous work when the map doesn't exist yet? If they're working across product and engineering daily, a required competency is cross-functional translation. Can they take a technical constraint and explain it to a product manager without losing the detail that matters? Name the behavior. Don't leave it implied. Now, I had a team waiting on me for every decision, not because they couldn't think, but because I had accidentally trained them to escalate. Every time someone brought me a question, I answered it. Every time there was uncertainty, I stepped in. Over time, I became the decision layer for things I should never have been touching. The fix, it wasn't a conversation. It was a document. And here's exactly what that looks like. For budget, the engineer can approve tools up to $500 per month inside the approved stack without asking. Manager approval covers $500 to $5,000. Anything above that, anything creating long-term vendor lock-in, goes to an executive. For architecture, local implementation decisions inside an existing service are the engineer's call. Cross-service design goes to the tech lead. An architecture review is triggered when the decision changes data ownership, introduces a new platform, or affects security. For deployment risk, low-risk deploys are team-owned. Medium risk requires a rollback plan and peer review. High risk requires release owner approval, business stakeholder visibility, and defined go/no-go criteria before anything moves. For incident escalation, the team handles normal production issues within documented runbooks. They escalate when customer impact crosses a defined threshold, when recovery exceeds the expected window, or when the fix requires a call outside their authority. Write it down, exactly that specifically. Ambiguity is what creates bottlenecks. Here's how it works. You take the ownership boundaries section, sit across from the candidate, and ask them to walk you through a specific time in their last role where they owned a decision at exactly that magnitude. Not a project they were on, a decision they made. Then you listen for one word. Strong candidates can absolutely talk about collaboration and still tell you precisely what they owned. A strong answer sounds like this. I owned the alert redesign for the payments service, reduced false positives by 42% in 90 days, and wrote the escalation rule that stopped every issue from going straight to the VP. That person knows what they built. They can name the before and the after. A weak answer sounds like, we improved reliability across the platform. Trapdoor opens. Now, when you hear we, don't drop the thread. Follow it. Ask, when you say we, what part did you personally own? Ask, who was the decision owner? Ask, was that your recommendation or your decision? Ask, what artifact came out of it? A runbook, a dashboard, an escalation path, a decision log? Each follow-up forces specificity. Ownership-minded candidates have no problem with these questions. Consensus seekers, though, they start to unravel. If they say, we decided, that's a consensus seeker. If they say, I decided and here's what happened, you've got an owner. That one word tells you whether to keep interviewing or to end the loop. The scorecard isn't just for attracting people, It's your grading rubric during the interview. No gut feel, no vibes. You already wrote down what the role requires. Now you're checking whether this person has evidence of living at that level. When you hire with a scorecard, your engineer walks in on day one knowing exactly why they're there, what they need to hit, and what they own. No ambiguity, no waiting for permission. The real challenge, build the scorecard before you post the role. If you can't fill in the outcomes section, you're not ready to open the headcount. Full stop. You hired with a scorecard. Your engineer walks in on day one knowing exactly what they own. That's the move. The full template, all 4 sections, is at the link in the description. Drop your next role in it and see who shows up differently. Now get to work.